Great. So, just as a review, we have already had one class on Python where we discussed on the basics of Python, why it is important, and how what are the several advantages of Python. Uh, just to probably note a few of them, we have seen that Python is uh, easy to learn and understand, and a majority of that part comes from the syntax of Python. And we see that as we quickly go into the coding of Python, you'll see that most of Python language is very intuitive, in the sense that even without a programming background, if you just read through the code, most of us will understand what the code is trying to do. So that interface of Python makes it very easy for beginners to enter into this field, and that is why it is very famous. Okay. It has a large number of libraries, and especially for data science, where uh, we'll be using so many things, starting from data handling to data processing to machine learning. For each of these categories, there are so many different options. Data visualization, even there are so many different options, and they help us to do a lot of things with base Python. So uh, we'll quickly see that we don't have to write a lot of code. All we need to do is we need to know which are the libraries and which are the packages that can help us in different scenarios. And if we just have access to that information, that will help us to do a lot of things with fairly less amount of coding. Further, especially for machine learning, it is very useful because we've got packages that are not just available for us to work at individual level, but even to work at corporate levels, even to work at on big data and more complex items. We've got packages that can be used for our systems, and it can be deployed in the market as well. So those are like the key features which help us to see that Python is very interesting, and we did that in last class. This class, what we hope to do is further go into the basics of Python to explore different operators and control structures. So since you already come from a programming background, I'm guessing this should be fairly simple to understand. So if you feel that this is something that is easy, just let me know, and then we can go quickly over this topic. So let's start with the content. Here we will look at arithmetic operators, we'll look at relational operators, logical operators, input output, and control structures. So these are the basic blocks that make up any programming environment. Uh, Here in Python, we have different operators. So a basic way is we of course we have all our plus, minus, negative, multiplication, division objects, and let's see how that look like. So probably we'll start with arithmetic operators. If we have a plus sign, we can do 3 plus 5. So this here is a Jupyter cell. Probably last time we also saw this one, that we can write material in a cell, and when you press Control Enter, it executes, and the output is available just below that. And we can trust different operations, individual operations, even big codes within these cells. Okay. So here we are looking at the plus operator, and it simply adds two objects. If I take 3 and 5, add it, it gives me 8. Along with numbers, we can also do that for string items. So if I take a string A and B, and if I add it, it does something very intuitive. It concatenates these two strings. Okay, so at this point only I know that this operator A is operator plus is what do you say? It's operator overloaded. Okay, because it intuitively understands that when you pass integers, it has to add. When you pass numbers, it has to add. Whereas when you pass strings, it has to concatenate them. Okay. If I take a string and a number and I try to add them, it gives me an error. It says that either both of them should be strings or either both of them should be integers. It cannot take this because we don't really know what this should do. Okay. Similar applies for minus, and for minus, it can take only one operand also. If I take just minus 5.2, it acts as if we are doing 0 minus 5.2, and that gives us minus 5.2. We can take two integers and we can subtract them. Similarly, when we take multiply, we can multiply two numbers. Now, here even with strings we can multiply two strings. We can multiply a number and a string, and here let's say we have taken la and we have multiplied it three times. We get the answer as la la la. That is, we have duplicated la three times. To raise numbers or to apply the power operation, we apply two asterisk signs. So 3 raised to 4 would be written as 2 3 asterisk asterisk 4. Okay, that gives us 81. We can use the divide operator. So divide gives us 13 by 3 gives us 4.333. So uh, here, even though we are taking two integers and we are dividing it, we get the answer as a float number. So this is true from Python 3.7 onwards. Python 3.6 2.7 would give you an answer of 4, but 3.7 onwards they have included giving float answers directly here. Otherwise you would have to do something like this. You would have to do float of 13 by 3 in 2.7. But now we don't have to do it that way. We can simply continue with this and it gives us answer. Let's say if you want integer, then we can typecast this, write as integer 13 by 3, and that will give us our 4. We also have the modulo operator like we have in most languages, which gives us the remainder after division. So 13 modulo 3 gives us 1, because 3 fours are 12 and we get a remainder of 1 here. We can do that with an easy way of a very common way of using modulo is if you want to find out if the number is even or not. So when you do 23 modulo 2, you get a remainder of 1, whereas when you do 20 modulo 2, you get a remainder of 0. Similar to arithmetic operators, we now have relational operators. So relational operators are less than, greater than, and so on. So the result of that returns into a Boolean value. In Python, the Boolean value directly is shown as the answer. So let's say if you're testing 5 is less than 3 and 5 is not less than 3, which is false, and we see the answer is a Boolean value. We have to remember that the first alphabet here is always capital, followed by smaller numbers. So whether it is false or true, the first alphabet is always capital. 3 less than 5 is true, so we get this answer. We can also combine, or we can chain multiple comparisons in one go. So here we are saying 3 less than 5 less than 7, and since both of these conditions are true, we get the answer as true. Similarly, if we check 5 greater than 3, just like the less than sign, we have the greater than sign, and that puts exactly the same way. Then we have less than equal to, which is checked here. We can write multiple statements in Python in one go. So let's say within this one cell, we are writing x is equal to 3, semicolon, that says that okay, this is one instruction. Y is equal to 6 is second instruction, and if x is less than equal to y, which is true, that is why we get the answer here. Similarly, greater than equal to works on the same note. If you want to check if two numbers are equal, we use the double equal to sign, and similar to C or other languages. Just as we can compare numbers, we can also compare strings. So here we are comparing if x is a string str, y is a string str with a capital R, and since they both are not verbatim same, x equal to y gives us a false. Similarly here, when we give both of them the same, x equal to y gives us true. Okay. Not equal to is given in Python by exclamation and equal to. So if x is 2 and y is 3, whereas which basically says that x is not equal to y. When we test that, we get an answer of true. Okay. Then along with the relational operators, we've got logical operators like our Boolean operators, not, or, and so on. So let's say we take x as true. So note that here we have not given inverted commas, and since if you're writing it in Jupyter Notebook has it highlights with the color that it highlights words it understands with color. So here true comes in green, saying that this is a keyword in Python. You have to write it with a capital T RUE small without any inverted commas. So x is true is a Boolean value. Not x basically gives us false. Okay, because we apply the not operator to x. So here you see we simply use the text not to represent. So within C or other languages you have to use tilde or something like that, whereas in Python you can simply write not x, and that represents false. Similarly, we can use the OR operator. So here, let's say we are saying x is true and y is false. If you want to do an OR operation, we can say x or y, and we just write the text OR, and that works well. So x or y, true or false, gives us true. So one of them is true, that gives us our answer true. Similarly, we can use the AND operator. So we are saying x is false, y is true. X and y returns us false, because AND operator will return true only when both of these inputs are true. Even when one of the inputs are false, we get the answer as false. Okay. So you're following so far?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Great. So let's go ahead. Now we'll deal with how we can, read inputs from the user and how we can give output on the screen. Okay. So to get an input from the user, we use the input command. Here, what we are doing is we are saying input, and then we provide the prompt that we want to give to the user, and whatever he returns will be captured into this variable called as person name. Okay. So when you run this piece of code, you see that it gives the user a prompt: enter your name. Let's say he enters the name Anup. The word Anup string goes into the variable person name, and this is always so input always represents as a string. Okay. So it always takes input as a string. So in this case, we take the string, put it into the variable Anup, and when we print it, we are to put things to give output on the screen. We use the print command, and print like input as a function. Print is also a function which takes parameters. So here we are giving the parameter hello plus person name. So as we saw earlier, when we use the plus operator with strings, it concatenates the two strings. So the first string here is hello with a space. The second string is the name the user has entered, and when we print this, it gives us hello. Okay. Let's say we want to take his age. Now, as I said, input always takes your answer as a string element. So when we say input, enter your age, this guy enters the number 23. 23 goes to age str, so this goes as a string. To get it as a number, I have to convert the string to a number, which can be simply done in Python. It can be done with int and whatever string that we are passing through. So if the string is a valid number, it will convert the number and put it into the variable age. If it is not a valid number, it will give you an error at this point. Okay. So here we take the string age, convert that into a number, and we can print in two ways. Okay. First is when we are printing it as a, we are printing it using the age number. We can say print age plus string of this number. So just as integer converts a number to a string. Similarly, string converts the number to an integer. Okay, so here we do that. We convert that. We convert this. Okay, sorry, I am writing something else. So integer converts the string into an integer. Whereas string takes the integer and converts that into a string. Okay. So here when we take a number and we pass it to str, it converts that into a string, and this string now can be added with this string. So you get your answer age 23. Similarly, we can use the base string also to just simply add them together. Add them here in this context means concatenating them, and it gives us our answer age 23. Let's go here. So when we can also do one thing while reading. If I know that what I'll be reading from the user is an integer, I can typecast it here itself. So here we are saying input, enter your age. That gives us this prompt. When the user puts 23, that 23 goes to this function, which is integer, and this integer function will take that 23 string, convert that into an integer, and store that into age 1. Okay. So if you want to see the type of this variable, we say print type of age 1, which gives us this line, which says that this age 1 is a type is belonging to a class integer. So in Python, Python is heavily object oriented. Okay, so since it is heavily object oriented, everything in Python is implemented using classes and objects. Okay, so here we see that this age is of class integer. Okay, and class is a way we are representing different data types. So post this point, we can say print age of string age1, which converts age1 into a string, and then we can add it. Or if we want to just print it as a number without converting into a string, we can pass it as two different arguments. So print is a function. Here it is taking two inputs. The first input is age, so this is a string. The second input is a number, and we are putting a comma between them, and the number is automatically printed on the console as once seamlessly. Okay, so these were basic user input output. So we have looked at different operators, and we have looked at basic user input and output. Let's go to control statements. If you have been programming any amount of time, we know that if-else statements and loops and controlling within the loops with break, continue, and pass are very important or key elements to any programming language. Okay, so here we look at Python. In Python, similarly as we are writing a piece of code, and you come across a condition. Based on whether the condition is true or not, we can take two paths, either the true path or the false path. So if you are writing a basic if statement, in the false that does not exist anything, and we just skip the conditional code and go outside the code. That is what happens in your basic if commands within any language. So here in Python, how we write it is something like this. We write if an expression, whatever is the condition that we are trying to check. It always ends with a colon, and then post that point we write the statements that we want to execute when the condition is true. Okay. One thing to note here is in Python, we don't have brackets open or close. To show that if something is present in the loop or not, we provide a tab, or we provide some space from the starting point. So here one tab represents that all of these statements that will follow will be part of this if loop. Okay. Let's look at some examples to see how this works out. So let's say here in this case, we start with a variable a whose value is 4, and we are testing some criteria here. So here we are saying if a is greater than 3. So in this case, we know the value of a is 4, a and 4 is greater than 3, so this will be true. So if this is true, we enter inside the for loop, we enter inside the if loop, and every statement inside that follows a tab will be inside the if loop. So here we'll write the first statement, condition is true, and the second statement, sample statement. So this works well. Okay. Let's look at here a second example where now a earlier was 4, now a is 3, which basically says that this condition is not true. If this condition is not true, it does not enter the if loop, and both of these statements are not executed. We see that the answer is blank. That is nothing. We just have a is equal to 3, and then this condition is not true. You come down, the code ends, and we get no output. In this case, we have a is equal to 3, but the sample statement is outside the if loop. Okay, so this condition is still false. We don't print condition is true. We come outside the loop, and outside the loop we have the statement, sample statement, which gets printed. So a tab basically controls whether something is within the loop or not. Okay. We can have nested if loops like this. So we are having a is equal to 4, and this condition is true. Because this condition is true, we have entered inside this for loop. Inside this if loop. Inside this if loop, we first write the statement condition is true. We check for a secondary condition. Now 4 is not equal to 5, so this condition is false. We don't enter inside the nested if loop, so this statement does not get printed. After this statement, we have the sample statement, which is already part of our line flow, and then that gets printed as well. Okay. So basic understanding of loops is this way. Let's go ahead. Now we can add one more variety to this. That if condition is true, we will run some piece of code. If condition is false, we will run some piece of code. So that has to be that has to go into the else part of the loop. So this is how our syntax will look like. If expression, and then within colon we write statements. Else block will be in line of if block. It will end with a colon, and then else, and whatever statements you want to execute here in the else block will come here. So again, let's look at some basic examples. If a is equal to 3, here the condition is not true, so this code is not executed. But since this is not true, we go into the else block, and in the else block, this line gets executed, which says condition is false. Here we do a is equal to 3. This condition is not true, so this does not get executed. This else block gets executed, so we get condition is false. And after this point, we exit the loop, and sample statement is outside both of these lines. So it comes, so irrespective of true or not, this line will always be executed. So we get here sample statement is true. Further, so it's just building on the same idea. Okay. So if you've got this, we'll move ahead. Okay. Or are you guys following?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, great. So if this is too slow, let me know, and I'll skip these ideas. And because if you've been through any programming language, this should be very repetitive. But anyways, let's go ahead. Okay. So we can have if and else if. So if you want to chain multiple if else conditions, instead of writing else and then if, we combine both of these ideas and write elif. Okay. So here we're starting with a variable of with a value of 45, and we are testing this condition. So if variable is less than 200 and the variable is greater than 50, so here less than 200 and greater than 50 is not true, so we don't enter inside this loop. We come to the next part, we check again if variable is less than 50, so this part is true, so we execute this line which gets printed here. Since this is true, we don't enter inside else at all, because one of these, so within a chain what happens is if any of the condition is true, we will not enter the last else block. So that condition is true, we go out, and when you go out, you come to this line, print other statement, and that gets executed. We look at one more example. Here we start with a variable value of 100, and here this condition is true if the 100 is greater than 50, greater than or equal to 50, and less than 200. So we enter inside this block. Inside this block, we print the first statement, which gets printed here. We check for if variable is 150, so variable is not 150, so which we don't enter into this. Variable is 100, so variable is 100, we enter into this block, which prints which is 100. Since one of these conditions is true, we don't need to check any of the conditions below, so this does not get executed. After this block, after this block, we don't even execute this part because this if was true. So after this true, else will not be run. We will directly move out to printing the other statement. Okay, so this is how your execution would look like when you're having multiple else if blocks in a chain. Further from this, we can go to looping. So one of the most important, most powerful things that we get with the programming language is the ability to do some piece of code again and again. That is what the power of computers are. So here in a loop, what goes on is, let's say you come to the condition. If the condition is true, you implement a conditional code, and you again can check the condition. So as long as the condition is true, we keep on executing this code unless the condition becomes false. Once it becomes false, we come out. Okay. This is how our standard loops work. So within most languages, we get while and we get for as examples to run with. Within Python also, we've got both of them. So let's start with the while loop, see how it functions. So for any loop, we need to remember that there are three things that are important. One is initialization, then there is condition, and then there is incrementation or decrementation. So and all loops will have at least all three of these ideas to help us execute where does the loop start, till when the loop will continue, and how it will increment in its path. So in this case, we look at the while loop. We start with a variable count, which will be our index to count how many times we have run the loop. We start with 0. We put a while condition that while count is less than 9. So here we are starting with 0, so at this point it is true, and we put a colon showing that a loop has started. Everything inside this loop has to follow a tab. So we start with one tab and we say print statement which prints the count is, and then it gives the value of the count. So when count is 0, it prints the count is 0. So this is our initialization, this is our condition. Now we come to our incrementation part. So here we increment the value of count. So count goes as count is equal to count plus 1. Initial value was 0, so 0 plus 1 gives us 1. And once we've reached the end of the loop, we'll go back to the condition and see if the condition is true. So here the condition is still true because 1 is also less than 9. We print this command, we get count as 1. Okay, so this keeps on happening till the condition is true. So let's say we fast forward till 8, we have printed 8, and here we write 8 plus 1 is 9. So when count is 9, you go back to the condition. 9 is not less than 9, so this condition now becomes false, because of which we come down and print other statement. Okay, so this is a basic while loop. This graph tells us how the code will look like. Now, what happens with loops is, if you forget to write some part, it's very likely that you will enter into an infinite loop. That especially happens with while. It happens much lesser with a for loop, but with a while it is very common to happen. So in this case, let's say if we start with count is equal to 0, we are checking if count is less than 5. We write the instruction here, print the value of count, print is less than 5. But we have not incremented or decremented the code. Okay? Since we are not doing that, this condition is always true, and because this condition is always true, you will keep on printing 0 is less than 5, and your program will enter into an infinite loop. So when this happens within a Jupyter notebook, what we can do is, at the top of our screen, we'll have this toolbar. Okay, this toolbar has a run, stop, reload, and forward. Okay, what we first try is you try stopping the code by pressing the stop key, and sometimes the kernel is smart enough to stop, to understand that we have entered into a loop, and when you press the stop code, it stops execution. Sometimes it is not able to stop the execution. So when it is not able to stop the execution, you press on this restart, which will restart the kernel. Okay, and once you restart the kernel, it will give you a pop-up like this. It will say that, do you want to restart the kernel? All variables will be lost. But at this point, there's no point continuing the loop, because you're already, things are going haywire. So you can say restart, and once you do restart, it will restart the kernel, which can be seen. So at the top, when we go to the Jupyter environment, we'll see on the top right hand side, we'll have this place, and here it gives you a certain idea of what, if the kernel is idle or it is ready or it is stuck. It will give you some indication there. So once it has become idle again, you can continue with our program. So as long as we note that we are implementing these three things rightly, our program will not enter into an infinite loop. But many times it still happens, and there are ways to come out of it. Now, apart from while loop, we have for loop, and for loops are probably more intuitive ways of running loops. The way it works is like this. So it will say for the sequence in Python to run a for loop is something like this. For whatever variable we are iterating, that is our counter variable, will come here, and we'll put a sequence here. So this sequence can come from multiple places. We'll see what this idea is, and that's it. So this iterating variable will take different values of the sequence inside the statements. Okay, let's look at an example to be clear of what we're talking. So let's say here we are saying for letter in Python. Now Python is a sequence. It is a sequence of characters. Okay, so the characters are Python, and when we say for letter in Python, what this letter variable will do is it will take different elements from the sequence. So the sequence, the first element it will take is the capital letter P. So when you enter inside, you write say print current letter and letter. So it will take the value P. In the next iteration, it will take the value Y. In the next iteration, it will take T, H, O, and N. Okay. So this sequence determines how many times this loop is going to run, and this sequence also determines where it is going to stop. Okay. So here in this case, the loop will start at P, and it will execute till we reach the last letter N. Okay. So this is why for loops are a bit more intuitive, because you write the starting and end and condition all in one line. Okay, which makes it easy for, and unless you do it that way, the loop will show an error. So which makes it easy for it to not enter into infinite loops. Okay. So this is one way where we can take the sequence as a string and we can run it. Okay, but in most cases we want to also run through numbers. And to run through numbers, we'll look at one very basic function that is used in Python. The name of the function is range. Okay, so when you do help on range, it will give us some documentation which explains in what ways this range function can be used. Okay, so let me directly go to the examples. So let's say here we have the range function, and we are passing the range function 3 parameters. We are passing it 1, 5 and 1. So the first parameter always tells us when we are passing multiple parameters. So here when we are passing multiple parameters, the first parameter is always the start variable. The second parameter is always the stop variable. Probably let me write. First parameter is the start variable. The second parameter is the stop variable. And the third parameter is the step variable. Okay, in what steps we should go. So when we write this statement, 1, 5, 1, it will start at 1 and it will take steps of 1. So it will take steps of 1 means it will go to 1, 2, 3 and 4. So in Python, it always stops at 1 less than the number that is given. So here when we give 5, it will stop 1 less, that is it will start from 1 and end at 4. In the second case, we start with 3 gaps of 2. So 3, next is 5, next is 7, next is 9. Now the next would have been 11, but it is the number we are stopping at is 10. So it will stop at 9 itself. We will not go to the next step. When we don't write the third element, when step is not written, by default it is taken as 1. So here when we write 3, 10, this will take the values 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. It will not take 10 because as I just explained, in Python we take one less number. Okay. We can also write a decrementation loop here. So here range, when it starts from 10 and goes till 1 with steps of -1, we start with 10, -1 is 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 and it stops at 2. It will not go to 1. Okay. So these are multiple ways where we implement the range command. So this range, this one line basically gives us a sequence to run on. So this is mostly used in Python with for loops. Okay, and okay, let me take this example. So in this example, when you just pass one element, this element is the stop element. Okay, so stop element, when you put stop element as 5, basically this will start from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, and it will end at 4. Okay, so when the start point is not given, by default it starts from 0, and that's how it goes. So here we say for I within this range. So this range 5 is the sequence that I will take values from. So I will take first the value of 0. It will enter inside this loop, and we print current index is I. So we print 0. Then we go through the loop saying 1, 2, 3 and 4. And this is where our loop ends. Okay. Is this clear?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's go ahead. We can also do something called as nested loops. So within nested loops, we can have a loop inside a loop we can have another loop. So we can do the same with for loops, or we can do it with while loops. So for loops we have first our iterating variable and a sequence, then a second iterating variable and a sequence, and these set of statements will run for the interior for loop, and these set of statements will run for the exterior for loop. The same applies to while loop also. Let's look at some examples. Okay. So in these examples, we say for I in range 3, so I will take different values from this range. So this sequence 3 starts at 0, 1 and 2. Similarly, J will take values in the range 3, which will take 0, 1 and 2. And when we enter inside this for loop, for each outer variable, it will run 3 times inside. It will take all of these values. Okay, so when you are saying something like this, print I comma j is I comma j, I will first take the value of 0. Then we will take all 3 values of j 0, 1, 2. So you get I0 and j as 0, 1, 2. Then I will take the value of 1. It will go to 0, 1, 2. I will take the value of 2 and will go to 0, 1, 2. So this is how we just write a simple nested loop. And externally we'll write after the loops finish, we write out of loop. We can also see this as as broken into 3 parts. So the outer loop takes one value of I, and then the inner loop runs through this. Similarly, the outer loop takes then the value of 1 and the inner loop goes through this. Outer loop takes the value of 2 and the inner loop goes through this. Okay. The basic nested loops. Now, to control loops, we have 3 important statements. We have the break statement, the continue statement, and the pass statement. So what a break statement does is, whenever you will reach the break statement, it will simply exit the outer loop. Okay, so let's look at some examples. So let's say here we have a for loop uh, where the letter will take the values from the sequence Python, and we have a condition inside. We are saying that if letter takes the value of h, then we will break the loop. Okay, let's see what happens. So in the first case, letter takes the value of p. We enter inside, this condition is not true. So we skip this. If we skip what is there inside the condition, we go to this line. It prints current letter as capital P. We have finished the for loop, so we go back to the for loop with the second, with the second value in the sequence. It takes the value y. Then still this is not true. We print y. We go to the next variable. We print. We go to t. This is not true. We print t. We go to the next variable. We reach h. Okay. So when we reach h, we check this. We check this condition. This condition is now true. Since this condition is now true, we go inside and we go to the break command, and the break command will break this for loop. Okay, so once the break command breaks this for loop, we go outside the loop. So it does not go to O and N. Okay, it simply stops at H, and we print out of it. Another example of that is something like this. We start with the variable 10. Uh, can just give me 1 minute? I'm getting a call. Just 1 second.
Yeah,
Hello. Hello. Yes, Shruti. Okay, okay. I don't know. Hello. Yeah, sorry for the
yes.
interruption. Okay, I'm back. So here we were going through the second example of break. We start with the variable. So here we have used it for a for loop. Let's try to use it for a while loop. So we're saying variable is equal to 10. If variable is greater than 10, we will enter inside this loop. So here variable is 10 and variable is greater than 0. So which means the condition is true, we enter inside. If variable is 5, we enter here. Otherwise, we simply print variable value is whatever is the variable value, 10. We decrement the value of 10. So 10 minus 1 gives us 9. And at this point, the loop ends, right? So since we have exited the loop, we'll go back to the condition to verify if the condition is true. Condition is still true, so we keep printing that till 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Once we reach 6, 6 minus 1 is 5. We go back. This condition is true. We enter inside. This condition is also true. So if variable is 5, we enter inside and break. So what break will do is it will break the while loop. So once you break the while loop, you go outside and it prints out of loop. Similar to break, we have the continue statement. And what the continue statement does is, whenever you encounter the continue statement, it will go back. It will return execution to the next iterator. Okay. So let's look at here. So we are starting with Python. Till t, everything is same. Now once the letter takes the value h, this condition is true. You enter inside here and you come to the variable continue. When you come to the variable continue, you don't go down from this point. From here, you directly go to the next iteration. You go to O. Okay, so when you reach O, letter is not equal to H. So O is not equal to H. This condition is false. You print then the current letter is O, and then the loop continues. So the difference between break and continue is, break will exit a loop, and continue will continue with the next variable from that point. So it will not execute the statements below the continue statement, and it will directly go to the next iterator. So that's why we get this scheme. Similarly, for the while loop, we print everything from. So here now we have moved the subtraction up. So we take the value of 10. 10 minus 1 is 9. So you print 9, 8, 7, 6. When you reach 5, you reach at this point, and then this condition is not true. Since this condition is true, you go to continue. Continue says that you will not execute what is down, and you will directly go back to the condition. And after going back to the condition, you will keep on working. So probably, can you tell me why did we move variable is equal to variable minus one? So earlier this statement was down, but now we have moved it to the top when we change our example from break to continue. Can any of you guess what would be the reason for that?
No.
Okay. Srinivas?
Yeah, because in the like in the where condition, there should be initialization and condition and increment, right?
Right.
So
Okay.
like it's going to increment, I guess.
Okay. So if we imagine a scenario where this was still bottom, so this line is not here, and we after this point we write variable is equal to. Okay, there's one more shortcut. Instead of writing variable is equal to variable minus one, we can write variable minus equal to one, and that will also do the same thing, just like we do it in C. I think even Java does it the same way. So if we reach to this point and we have this is true, what it will do is it will not execute the statements below. It will directly go to this loop. So here variable value is 5. It will continue. You go back here. This condition is true. Get inside. Variable value is still 5. It will continue. Go back here. Variable value is still 5. So we'll enter into an infinite loop. Why? Because now the code has no way of going to the decrementer.
Okay.
So when we move the decrementer up, then it goes back to the condition, decrement the value, the condition has changed. Now you will not go through this part. So that's the reason we had to move the variable minus sign from down to up. Let's go ahead. The third statement we have is the pass statement. The pass statement basically does nothing. It just passes the block. Okay. So let's look at what it we do. Let's say for the same example we reach h. This condition is now true. We pass. Pass does nothing. You come down and you say this is a pass block. You print this is pass block. You go down. You print the current letter is h. So what break would have done is break would have cancelled our loop from this point, and after p by t it will have directly given out loop. What continue would have done is continue would have skipped both of these lines, and after t it would have continued with on. What pass does is absolutely nothing. It writes this is pass block, it goes to the next block also. So where is it used? So pass is generally used as a null operation. That is, you have written some condition, but you right now don't know what you'll be putting there. So we'll just put a pass, and so this will be some code that you will execute in the future or implement in the future. Sometimes we even create functions this way. That is, you know what functions you'll be using, but you are not implementing the function right now. So you will just write the statement pass inside it. So this acts as a placeholder which will not give error in your program, but the interface will still be there so that in future you can implement it later on. Now within Python there is one more very interesting thing. We can use else statements with loops as well. Okay. So here we have a for loop, and whenever the for loop is not true, we will enter inside the else part, execute this once, and then exit. Okay. So let's look at an example for that. So here we are saying for I in range 5. Range 5 means this will take values from 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and so as long as it will go through all of these different values and run this loop. So here we'll print 0 is less than 5, 1 is less than 5, 2, 3, 4 is less than 5. After we finish this loop, this condition is no longer true. It enters into the else block. It prints else of for loop, and then you go out and you print out of loop. Okay. Now, so this happens in a normal scenario. Let's see a scenario where we have a break statement. So in a break statement, we say if for I in range 5, print I is less than 5. If I is equal to 4, we break. So we go for 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Once we reach 4, we go to the break statement. What break statement will do is it will exit from the loop. So when you exit from the loop, it exits from the for and else together. Okay, so it exits out of this entire group and it goes directly to out of loop, and we print out of loop. Okay. So break else is useful in some instances when you want to see if you have exited the loop cleanly or you have exited the loop with a break. Okay, so if you have exited the loop clean, you will go into the else block. If you have not exited the loop clean, if you have exited the loop using a break, you will not go into the else block as well. Uh, yeah, so we can even use the same else block with while loops. So here we are saying count is equal to 0, count if count is less than 5, we print count is less than 5, increment the value of count, and else count is not less than 5 out of loop. So in a normal scenario, we print 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. For 5, this condition will fail. When this condition fails, you enter inside this block. It says 5 is not less than 5, and then you print out of loop. Whereas here, when you get a break statement, the break statement ensures that you will not even enter the else loop as well. So we don't see the else in execution. Yeah, that's it for operators and control statements. Do you have any questions at this point?
Yeah, like we are using like for else and while else, like we are using here as a break statement, right?
Right.
Like the break.
Right.
So can we also use like pass and continue?
Yes, we can use all of the elements. We can also use pass and continue, and they would work exactly similarly. Okay, so what continue would do is, let's say instead of break here we had continue, and let's have a more interesting number. Let's say we have at continue 2. Okay, so once we reach continue 2, what it will do is it will directly take execution back to the condition. So since here nothing else lies below, if we do go directly to the go directly to the condition, we would not know the difference. It will execute all of these values. So it will implement 2, 3, 4, and 5, and in the end it will also execute the else loop and then come out. So maybe we can, I can show you my screen and we can see an example of that. Okay. Let me just start. I'll stop sharing from my iPad and start sharing from my screen. Just 1 second. Okay, you are able to see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just terminal. Okay, so let's maybe let me just write the same instructions as before and we'll verify. So let's say we start a while loop with count 0, and while count is less than 5, we are going with print count and is less than 5, and we have to increment it. So count is count plus 1, and if count is equal to 4, we have break. We have an else loop that says that print count is not less than 5, and out of this loop we have our print out of. Okay, so when I execute this, we get the same output as before. But let's say we go with a continue block, and what a continue block does, maybe let me. Okay, so what continue block does is once we reach the condition count is equal to 4, so here we simply break. So since you have we break, we don't go to the values of 4 and 5. Okay, and since we also use break, we don't enter inside the else loop as well. But let's say when we do continue, it says when count is equal to 4, we click continue, it goes back to the condition, and it simply goes back to the condition and then says, okay, now 4 is still less than 5. We print 4 is less than 5. We increment, we print 5 is less than 5. After since we have cleanly exited the while loop, we enter inside the else block. We print that 5 is not less than 5, and we go out of loop. Okay. So we can use all the statements. We can use even pass. Maybe an example of pass would be
Elijah, apart from pass, break, or continue, do we have pause, stop, wait, and all?
no, we don't have stop, wait, and all. So break. What do you mean by stop and wait?
We'll stop that entire loop at one point.
Yeah,
Instead of going to the next cycle, we'll stop that. Come outside the for loop directly.
break does exactly the same thing. No? It comes outside the for loop without continuing ahead.
Oh yeah, this yes.
Okay. So do you guys have any other questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Srinivas, have you also joined the classwork here? Let me just verify.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
Okay,
just
great. So within classwork, you should be able to see. We just finished this part: operators, control structures. What follows is this assignment 1 on condition loops. Okay. So here, if you open this PDF, you will see some examples that we have given in. Okay. So you can continue solving this example. So what we have studied through today should help us with that information, with that knowledge, we can solve all of these examples. If you want, we can probably try one here. Okay, so let's say we say write a continuous while loop where you take the integer input from command prompt one by one, and if the number n is odd, print number is odd, else print number is even, end the loop when 0 is entered. Okay, so I'll just write a code for this one just to get things started.
Okay.
So if I go to our notebook, this is our question. I convert this into a markdown so that it just prints as text. Now I can, so within markdown I can do some highlighting also. I can say this is question 1 and write a continuous number by contain by loop where you take integer from input one by one. And let's okay. Probably I'll just put this for now and then we'll see it. So we'll write a continuous while loop. So I can, since I want a continuous while loop, I can simply say while true, and I can take a variable. So let's say number is the input I'll take from the user. I'll say int of input, enter a number, and if number modulo 2 is equal to 0, that means it is an even number. I will print number is even, else print number is odd, and if it is 0 we have to exit. So let's say before this point we'll start if number is 0, we'll break, and maybe before break we can also, okay, break is fine, and since I want to check two conditions I'll put an elif. Okay, and in the end we can write out of loop. So when I execute this, it says enter number, lets me enter 5, so it prints number as odd, let me enter 4, number is even, 2 it is even, then I put 0, it says out of loop. Okay, so you can try the examples from here, and if you get stuck at any point, then you can probably ping me on WhatsApp. I'll answer you wherever I see the message, and we'll have our class the day after tomorrow, right?
Okay, sure. Thank you. Yeah.
So I'll stop sharing.